Welcome to But For Real, a variety show podcast co-hosted by two therapists who also happen to be loudmouth feminists. I'm Valerie, your resident elder millennial child-free cat lady.
And I'm Emerson, your resident chronically online Gen Z brat. And on the show, we'll serve up a new episode every other week that will take you on a wild ride through the cultural zeitgeist, mental health, and beyond.
You'll definitely laugh and TBH sometimes maybe cry a little because this is a silly and serious show.
Buckle up, my friends, and let's get into today's episode.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we are joined with Devon Price, PhD, who is a social psychologist, author, clinical associate professor, and autistic person living in Chicago. Shout out. He is the author of books Laziness Does Not Exist, Unlearning Shame, Unmasking Autism, and most recently, Unmasking for Life. Welcome to the show, Devon.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited to have you. We were just chatting about birthdays and all the things. It's your birthday today, which I'm like, oh my God, you're spending time with us. I feel special.
Now it's time for our first segment, Tea and Crumpets, where we tell you what we can't stop talking about this week.
So you want to kick us off?
I will. I've been reading David Archuleta's memoir. Do we all remember David Archuleta, like the American Idol guy? Barely, but like, so big deal. Big deal for the Gen Zers. Like, I remember him being on iCarly and maybe a Nickelodeon show also. But his memoir, Devout, has been so interesting. I kind of have like a, what's it called? Like a rubbernecking type view with Mormon culture. I just find it really, really fascinating just being raised atheist and like completely non-religious, like how religion, Utah, Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, I'm always just kind of like rubbernecking a bit, but just really interesting to hear him talk about his experiences of fame, very like child star coded, which Devon, I'm always so interested in child stars and just their mental health and what's going on there. But just really good. I audioed it and read part of it. He just has a nice audio voice, so highly recommend for some deconstruction or if you just want to learn more about Mormon culture and stuff.
I was with some colleagues at a training, and the other night we're sitting at a bar at the hotel after the conference, and I'm not going to name names, of course, but with a friend who is a Mormon, like mid-40s, dad plays the organ at church, and was having his third alcoholic beverage of his life. Oh my God. I was like, what an honor. Wow. For sharing that. I know. And not leaving the church or anything, just deciding to let the restraints up a little bit.
That's really awesome.
You enjoy that, Moscato.
Yeah.
Okay, so mine is courtesy of what was available on Southwest Airlines yesterday when I was flying home, which is this little show, a new Netflix show called Running Point, starring Kate Hudson. Mindy Kaling is one of the co-creators. And it's basically like, imagine if, a fictional LA Lakers, basically, and she gets sort of thrust into the family, the nepotism of it all and put in charge. And oh my God, she's a woman. So yeah, but it's clever. It's funny. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Lovely. Devon, from your guest form, I plugged the pluribus, but if you have anything new to yap-a-doodle about, we'd love to hear about it.
No, I'm still obsessed with Pluribus, which for those who don't know is a show about this this is all episode 1 stuff, so it's nothing spoilers. This is the premise. It's about this kind of alien virus that comes and infects the entire planet, and for all except for 13 immune humans, everybody else has their entire consciousness linked, all of their memories. Everybody knows everything that everybody else knows, and they're like a hive mind. And they are super polite and helpful to the remaining human survivors, and they know everything that human has ever experienced with another person that's ever been like incorporated into the hive. So these aliens are kind of helpfully waiting on the remaining humans hand and foot and giving them everything that they want, but also trying to assimilate them. And it's vaguely unsettling. And it's kind of a metaphor for AI a little bit. It's kind of a metaphor maybe for colonization and a bunch of different things. And the thing that I just keep obsessing over is how much I like and relate to the creepy, very nice alien hive mind. It feels very like autistic masking or having like a fawny people-pleasing kind of response, or if you just put yourself on conversational autopilot to fit in, how that can kind of make you feel like a AI LLM model sometimes. And so that's something I'm very, very fixated on lately, is this thing that scares a lot of us.
Sure.
What do we have in common with it? And is that part of what makes us afraid of it? Yeah, so that's my fixation. That's what I'm buzzing about.
Ooh, that's amazing. Kind of is giving a little bit of Janet from The Good Place. Did you see The Good Place? Yeah.
Yeah, similar style where she's like very polite and helpful and like very literal with what you ask of her. Very that, except it's like everybody on the planet. It's like billions of people are Janet.
So intense.
All around. Yeah.
Definitely on my list. Okay, amazing.
Janet's all around.
Now it's time for Step Into My Office, where you get advice from your favorite professionally qualified, personally peculiar therapist.
So, dear Val M. and Devon, I was diagnosed with ADHD at 34 and autism at 37. By then, I had already spent 3 decades being told I was too much, too intense, too weird, or not trying hard enough. I had a whole career, a marriage, a life that looked fine on the outside, but on the inside, I was exhausted in a way I couldn't explain to anyone, including myself. After my autism diagnosis, I cried for about 2 weeks straight, not because I was devastated, but because I finally had language for something I had been white-knuckling my way through my entire life. Here's where I'm struggling now. Being in my late 30s and just starting to figure out who I actually am is so much harder than I expected. I thought the diagnosis would feel like freedom, and in a lot of ways it does, but I also feel this grief that I wasn't prepared for. Grief for the younger version of me who didn't get to know this, grief for all the years I spent performing, quote, normal, grief for relationships where I was never really seen, even by myself. How do I hold all of the relief and grief without feeling like I'm doing all of this wrong? And how do I start building a life and an identity that actually fits me when I already am a full-ass adult? Sincerely, unmasked and unsure. Devon, any thoughts for this listener just so far?
Yeah, I'd love to dive in. The first thing I would say to them is that what you're going through is so incredibly common and to be expected for a lot of people who are making this kind of later in life neurodivergent realization. You're less alone than you would have been even 5 or 10 years ago in making that realization. There's a whole generation of people who are kind of coming into themselves, figuring this stuff out at that age. In my experience and looking at all of the people that I've interviewed and the research I've done, you can really be looking at a few years of really moving through all of these feelings and adjusting and incorporating kind of a new understanding of yourself and having kind of a more unified sense of yourself. That's what I've seen, is that typically people initially feel a ton of relief and permission to be themselves, which you described. And then you start feeling some amount of grief and loss for how much freedom has been denied you up until that point and how much you've denied yourself. Identity confusion because you've been masking for so long and you want to take that mask off, but it's not that simple. It's become how you move through the world. It's become part of your social and relational self. It's part of you. And so you can't just take it off. So there's a lot of finding safe places and finding safe people to begin to practice being a different version of yourself and getting back in touch with things that you were passionate about when you were younger, before you were masking so much. That's what a lot of both of my autism books are about. And there are also typically phases of anger. You might be mad at your family for not seeing you and not supporting you. You might be mad at, your partner or your friends who maybe loved or got really acquainted to the very people-pleasy version of you. You may be mad at yourself. It's really common to have a phase somewhere in there of thinking that autistic people and ADHDers are better than everyone else and that we're the only ones who really understand how the world is working. A little Aspie supremacy moment, which is ultimately pretty problematic. And then you come back around and you meet other neurodivergent people who suck and you realize we're just humans and we can suck as much as anyone and in all kinds of interesting ways. And then I think once you go through that kind of churn a few times, which again, I think really takes years, then you come to the sense of, this is a part of me. It's an important part, but it isn't the whole story. I'm not defined by this, but I am informed by this. And my life story and even my masking can be part of what's interesting about me. And it's a skill that I have that I can use for my own purposes. and hopefully feel some real grace about the past and how all of those experiences have led you to where you are and help you to connect with the lots and lots and lots of other people who are going through that exact same realization that you are right now in their 30s. This is all stuff that I went through, and it sucked. Writing about it sucked, but because I did, I was able to reach a lot of people and befriend a lot of people going through the same thing. So even that can be an asset. So just move through the things, feel the things, know that you're going to be going through it for a few years, enjoy each of those stops, wallow in the grief, wallow in the anger, all of the things. Just really feel all the things, and you'll come out the other side. A new version of you. It's not restoring this pre-masked you. It's this unified, integrated self, I think.
Yeah, that word integrated,
Yes.
that's exactly what I was thinking. It's like this hero's journey. Yeah. It's going to suck for a while. It's going to get worse, and it's going to get better, and then it's going to get really bad. And then hopefully there's this integration.
Well, and that's such the crux of therapy from like a therapist perspective, where it's going to get really, really terrible before it starts to get better when you sit on that couch every week and you start just like spilling your guts out over and over, and then you try to pull all your guts back together after the 15 minutes is up, and then try to go out into your real life and integrate all of this stuff. I think it's so important that it is this, because our continuum of mental health, it's all like, well, you go to therapy once and then you start healing immediately, when this has been years of suppressed feelings, and it's really such a grief journey that I think people don't give credence, that it takes time, but that's part of it, right? That it's part of it to encounter as it goes on. So that's really cool. Thank you for that perspective. And listener, you're not alone in all of that, and go to therapy week after week and go find friends and realize that everybody in your sphere still loves you and wants to figure out who you are as much as you. Okay.
And now it's time for the DSM. In our DSM, all varieties of dysfunction, spiraling, and meltdowns are welcome. In this segment, we break down complicated concepts and common misconceptions about mental health, well-being, and tell you what we really think.
So today, of course, we are digging into what it means to unmask for life and learning all about Devon's incredible work in the world. So starting with kind of introducing this book, Unmasking for Life, you're kind of taking the idea of skills training for folks with autism and turning it completely on its head. So tell us a little bit about what the traditional model of autism skills training looks like, and what made you want to write a book shifting that whole paradigm.
So this book I really thought of as a follow-up to my other book about autism, Unmasking Autism, which is all about that journey that we were just talking about of kind of realizing that you're neurodivergent later in life and trying to get in touch with yourself and trying to really accept yourself as you are rather than trying to meet a neurotypical mold. And that's one stage of the journey. That's kind of the first stage of the journey for a lot of people who make that discovery. But once you're on board with the idea that who you are, how you really are, is okay, and you want to live in the world as unmasked as possible, that's really not the end of things. Things actually get a lot more complicated. A lot of times your unmasked self can really kick loose a lot of uncomfortable feelings in, let's say, your family system, which tends to be a ton of other closeted neurodivergent people who don't even know that they're disabled. And how dare you act strange, quote unquote, when we learned for the first 80 years of our life that we're supposed to keep it buttoned up. Yeah. That's one area where it can be really challenging. For a lot of people, unmasking is really challenging in maintaining a job or finding work, or even kind of deciding for yourself, if I'm really being honest, can I work a full-time job, or is it taking so much of my energy to put on my work persona every day and seem normal that I can't have a full life? And what does the alternative to that look like? And so the book is talking through, Unmasking for Life, is all those practical kind of life challenges that get in the way of really setting your life up to match your disability rather than work against it. And it is really inspired too by as you mentioned, the social skills trainings that a lot of autistic youth are put through. And these trainings tend to be very well intentioned. They're a lot less troublesome than something like, say, applied behavioral analysis therapy, which can be just out and out torture and really drilling an autistic kid to behave as neurotypical as possible. A lot of social skills trainings are gentler, and they're trying to teach an autistic kid, here are some social norms and why they matter. Let's practice them. Let's explain them to you. But at the end of the day, the goal is still so that you can follow those rules. And so what we see in the research is that these social skills trainings, they don't improve the social skills of autistic kids. They don't improve their relationship quality. They don't improve any outcomes for these kids. The one thing that they seem to move is attentiveness to other people. That going through social skills trainings makes autistic people way more likely to like jump up and greet somebody as soon as they come in the room, or make sure that the other person gets to speak at least more than half of the conversation, right? All this emphasis on placating other people. So it's really, at the end of the day, not that different in its goals from ABA. Yeah. So what I set out in this book was this idea that we need actual social skills, which are things like getting into conflict with people, disappointing people and realizing the world isn't going to end, figuring out how the hell you're going to live under capitalism if you can't work a full-time job and your family thinks that's shameful, but that's what's best for you. So those were the kind of social skills that I really focused on in this book, the ones that they don't want us to have, the ones that make us disagreeable and kind of revolutionary and challenging and assertive and annoying. And all of those things are important to be able to be if you're going to be yourself in the world.
I love that. I always say to Valerie, God forbid two girls get together and get all annoying. I'm like, we just need to be more fucking annoying. Who cares? Who cares?
Annoyingness is not a sin. It's not a crime.
It's not a crime.
It's just taking up space.
Right. It's like maybe there's other ways to be in the world besides being extremely accommodating and agreeable all the time.
Yes, which I need to hear all the time. Okay. You've talked about how masking isn't just the survival strategy, and we're learning, of course, that it can be so embedded into somebody's identity, their career, their relationships, how they show up with friends, family. How do you approach people unmasking, kind of similar to our listener submission, when they feel like it's just blowing up their life, when they've kind of entered that process and they're kind of blowing up their life, or they're blowing up everything that they've worked really hard to build?
I think the first thing is that it's not binary or black and white. I think we tend to be pretty perfectionist if we're doing this stuff, period, and then we try to be perfectionists with our unmasking. I need to take it all off. I need to be in radical candor all the time. I need to blow everything up. And autistic people, we don't like a lot of change and loss and disruption. So that might not be the route. And I think it is okay to kind of take stock and say, what losses can I incur? And what are the aspects of masking that have been useful to me? Because sometimes it does get worse before it gets better. And we have masked for a reason. It's not just because we're self-hating or we don't have enough backbone, even though those things kind of come into play. It's also been this very protective thing that for many of us has made life better for us. So, for example, for me, one of those kind of macro masking strategies is leaning really hard into the skills that I did have so that people couldn't see the skills that I don't have. And that led me to things like burnout and overwork, which was terrible. And it also led me to have the career that I do have and to reach the people that I've reached and to have a lot more flexibility in my life than a lot of people have, right? So it's not all bad. And so I think we do get to make these decisions of, okay, when am I masking in ways that help me express my true values and act out my goals? And in what ways am I masking just out of fear or shame or because it feels obligatory? And it's okay to kind of make some movement around those edges. So for example, if your blunt autistic communication really triggers your, let's say, rejection sensitive spouse, because we tend to be married to one another, we tend to find each other and set each other off in different ways. It might feel weird that you are masking around that spouse and you don't want to do that. But it's okay if it's not this immediate, I'm going to take everything off right now. It's okay to use some of the tools that you've developed up to this point, because they are tools. It doesn't have to be self-betrayal. I think it is really important to carve these spaces out where you can be fully yourself as much as possible. Make some new super freaky autistic friends and really let loose. Find some people who are like really disagreeable and difficult but principled and you respect them and really get comfortable being uncomfortable with them. Do that stuff, flex that, and grow that distress tolerance. But it doesn't have to be all at once. And if you're having to kind of go up this gradual on-ramp of getting more and more used to being yourself, which most of us do, people in your life might need a little bit of an on-ramp too, and you can kind of figure it out together as long as they respect you and support the project and are trying to be with you in those hard feelings. Again, it's okay if these things take years. That's not a self-betrayal. And your mask isn't actually a false self. It's only a false self when you're trapped in it. But when you make choices around it, that's okay.
Wow. That's amazing. And I mean, it's all the nuance there.
Yeah.
I love that idea that it's not always a self-betrayal. And I think like your example of when you feel like you might be masking around a spouse, and maybe there's a difference between when you're truly masking, like I am not taking up space here. I'm not being genuine about my real feelings and thoughts. I'm not asking for what I would like, versus there's a couples therapist I love named Terry Real. And he talks about one of the 5 losing strategies in relationships is what he calls unbridled self-expression. That just, if you're just like vomiting on your partner, and I mean, this is for everyone, right? Of the neurotypicals, like everybody, that's not great, right? Like the filter is somewhat important for me to not be an asshole to my husband, but it's could be a slippery slope.
Yes.
And there's room for that nuance.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we have so many different thoughts, right? Like we are not our every thought and every reaction we have, because sometimes my thoughts and reactions are, I want to kill you. And it's not like I'm going to actually do that. So I don't need to say that. And I think there's also unmasking in like how you communicate. So it might be that you can't be completely present comfortably in the moment with someone yet, but you can still be honest and say, okay, I don't know how I feel about this thing you just brought up. I know that I need to like go off by myself and think about it and write down what I want to say. That's true for a lot of autistic people, for example. Like that is also unmasking, to say, I need time, I need space, I need my privacy to figure out who I am. And to say, sometimes I slip into fawn mode or I soften things. And again, that's okay. That can be in the room too. That's a part of you.
Mm-hmm. So earlier you mentioned capitalism, and there's a whole chapter in the book about, some strategies to kind of bring into your professional life. But I'm curious, kind of 2-part question, like anything you want to say about what it might take to build a sustainable relationship with work when this sort of typical 9-to-5 expectation may be sort of counter to your own well-being. And also, this is more philosophical maybe, but do you think the idea of autism being a disability, is that mostly because of what's required in a capitalist society? Or do you think that it would still be a disability in a different type of society that did not have these requirements of people?
Yeah, I'll start with the second question. It's such a big debate in autistic self-advocacy communities, and it's one that gets really inflamed along kind of support needs lines, where you see autistic people with kind of lower support needs, what used to be called higher functioning people, tend to be of that view that autism is only a disability socially, that we are only disabled because we're excluded and stigmatized and that the world isn't built for us. So like our state of disability is created by exclusion. And that otherwise, if people were more open-minded and if society provided for people better, that we wouldn't really be disabled, we'd just be different. And that idea tends to really make a lot of people angry who have really high support needs, who have, let's say, stims that are self-harming, or who elope. So they walk away and they get lost and they truly don't know where they are, or they need help toileting, or they need help eating. And some of these things are even kind of debatable, right? Is not being able to verbally speak, is that inherently a disability because you lack an ability, or is only a disability because we expect people to speak and we don't have things like sign language and augmented communication devices everywhere? So some of these things are kind of, it's philosophical, right? It depends on the lens that you look at it through. I would say that I think it's both. I think there's both a true state of disability in that there are things that we find more difficult than people who are not autistic, even to the degree where we can dislike it and want some of those things gone. If I could take a pill that made sensory meltdowns go away and nothing else, I personally would take it. There are aspects of being autistic that are hard and that I don't like. And I don't think people, have to like their disability to still, merit social inclusion and things like that. So I think it's a both and. I think a lot of things would be a lot easier if this world wasn't so stigmatizing. But I think also it's a disability. We hit developmental milestones later, or sometimes not at all. We have different needs and different abilities. I think there are things about it that would always be challenging, and that disability isn't a bad thing. So it's okay to name that and have all the feelings about it. You can feel good, bad, neutral, all of it about that stuff. For the workplace piece, it's so important, I think, to kind of put aside the societal should about to be an adult, to be a person under capitalism is to be fully independent and work a full-time job. I think so many of us are starting from that assumption that we have to be able to do that it makes it really hard to make decisions about how much it might be costing us to try and do that. I think the stats are scary, but it's good to have realistic expectations. 80 to 85% of autistic adults are either unemployed or underemployed. And so most of us are stitching together some combination of government benefits, disability, unemployment, leaning on family and friends, saving up a ton of money, working one way or another, and then recovering from burnout that all that work gave us for some period of years. And a lot of us also create communities where we're leaning on each other, disabled people all taking care of each other in a really messy, hard way. But the possibilities are really expansive, and that is how we get by. I think you have to start from just giving yourself the permission that can be true, that maybe work is not going to be for you, and that's fine. I think that's really important for parents to autistic kids to kind of internalize too, that like preparing them to be an independent worker bee isn't the most important thing. It's being okay and being healthy. And then from there, there's all kinds of specific nuts and bolts, and there's stuff about that in the book, like how to do a job interview if you do decide you can apply for jobs, because those are not very autistic friendly environments, job interviews. And different things to kind of figure out as you go. Even just getting on benefits is itself like a 2-year project. So none of this is easy, but there are a lot more options out there than I think people feel like they're allowed to settle on and not be ashamed of. And that's where most of us are. And it's totally fine. And you know, I only have a job because they don't realize how little I'm working. Like as a professor, like I can get away with being in bed all day sometimes.
Yeah.
And so nobody listening to this should feel ashamed if that's what their work capacity is, because we're disabled out here. It's okay.
Okay. You've mentioned a little bit about this with the masked version of you. What happens when the people who love you most, so our innermost core, or parents, siblings, partners, were in some ways served by the masked version of you? How do you talk about unmasking with people who didn't sign up for these unmasked versions of someone?
I think it is worth having a conversation with them that things are going to change a little bit and prepare them for that. It always helps to frame it as good news, right? And
Yes.
ask for their help.
Yeah.
Loop them in on helping you rather than telling them, you can't do this anymore, you can't do that anymore, don't talk to me like this. A lot of this is advice from Sarah Casper, who runs Comprehensive Consent and does a lot of consent trainings for kids and adults and college students. She says, you know, frame it as a request for help, not a set of rules. And that really, then because the person then knows what to do and it doesn't feel antagonistic. So sometimes the conversation can be something like, I have great news. As you probably know, I've been through a lot of stress and I've really had a hard time finding myself. I found out I'm autistic. That really has helped me make sense of a lot of different things. And so I'm going to be able to take better care of my body and help myself feel a lot more comfortable. Can you help me? And then, you know, have a little small request, a small thing that you think maybe they can handle, whether it's, can you try and make sure there's a food that I'm familiar with at these family gatherings? Can you, check in with me when I say yes to something to make sure my yes is really a yes? Just something really small that lets them feel involved in the process can really help. Give them a little time to digest it. You don't need to midwife them through that rebirth, but, say the thing and give them a little space, and take a little space for yourself too. And I think also take a little space and in that relationship, especially if things are hard, and kind of ask yourself, if things are repeatedly hard, is this a person who has ever been able to admit they were wrong? Is this a person who's ever been able to kind of apologize or self-educate on something? Do I have reason to believe that that's in their capacity? Or is this someone who they haven't really shown up for me in that way? And if that's the case, what are my expectations actually for this relationship that are realistic, and what do I want that relationship to look like now? Which might mean, some losses, some changes. You don't have to cut people off if you don't want to, but it might mean you talk to them less. Yeah. Those things are on the table too. Again, I think all about having realistic expectations and having the conversation, I think really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Another area you talk about in the book is love, romantic love, sex, intimacy. And we do a lot of couples and sex therapy. I'm like, it's hard enough just generally before you add neurodivergence to the mix. But especially in the early dating, there's not really an encouragement to talk really openly about how are we feeling about each other. It's read the room and infer things. And that's maddening again for anyone. But I think extra layers of difficulty here. So I'm curious. And also it's very ableist, right? That idea that we should all just be able to read the room. Is there kind of one tidbit or nugget there related to kind of dating or sex that you wish every autistic person could hear?
Yeah, I think the dating rules that we hear, they don't work for anybody. They are hurting. Right. Straight people are so screwed. It's so sad. It's so rough. It's so antagonistic. It's so much game playing, and you're taught to do that as a way to protect yourself. Yes. It's really sad. And queer people too, we still get infected with that stuff because we live in this world. You are not going to be missing out on some kind of beautiful connection by stopping playing the game. Right? Mm-hmm. Like the game is very much show that you're less interested than you are. If you are, pretend to kind of keep your vision of your future this kind of blank slate so the person can project whatever fantasy they want onto you. And you are going to waste so much time if you're trying to appeal to everyone. The world is really not that scarce. There are a lot of people out there who will love you in whatever ways you want. Sex, romance, friendship, queer platonic partnership, polycule, whatever. But you can't throw your whole life away trying to please people who want this easy, simple version of you. So come out freaky as you want to be, because that will select the right people. Whether that's something like, if you can't approach someone and ask them out at a party with your words, giving them your phone number on a slip of paper, that's not too weird. The people who won't like that aren't the people for you, right? Yes. Find the other introverted autistic people who communicate better via notes, If you are kinky, if you are polyamorous, if you don't like sex, lead with that stuff so that you're not wasting your time. And again, there's a little distress tolerance to get there with the rejections that are going to sometimes happen. But that will mean that you are narrowing your sights to the people who are actually going to get you. And it's going to feel so much better. And that really changes everything once you start really going for what you want. That's what's most important to lead with.
I feel like piggybacking off of that, another element in the book is talking about maintaining friendships. It's honestly probably the thing that I talk about, if not the most, with clients is how the fuck do I make friends? Being an adult is hard, and then being an autistic adult trying to make friends is hard. I feel like it oftentimes can be pathologized also, where, we bring in this element of weird. You wouldn't believe the amount of times in a week I have someone saying, well, like, if I do this, will this person think I'm weird? Sure, and who gives a fuck? If they're your flavor of weird, they're your flavor of weird. But that said, what does friendship building actually look like when you're building it around how you work, not the neurotypical kind of social scripts that fuck us over with dating and also fuck us over with friendships too?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So a lot of autistic people get into this pattern of either feeling totally isolated and friendless, or you're surrounded by a bunch of people who you kind of just became friends with them through, you worked together, they picked you. You weren't really feeling like you had the power to discern, do I actually like this person? It's all about, how do I make people like me? And so getting in touch with your actual feelings about that stuff is really important. And also, I think kind of moving through the prospect of finding new friends, I've noticed a lot of people need kind of a paradigm shift, that like a lot of people have this vision of, I need community, I need friendship, I need to find this beautiful place that already exists out there in the world, this club, this hobby, this space. It happens to a lot of queer people, right? Like this queer community hub where I feel like it's home and I just instantly get along with everybody and it's beautiful and it's great and I'm accepted. And that's not how it works. You actually kind of have to build it one relationship at a time with the choices that you make and with initiating things and asserting yourself. And that doesn't mean you have to be this confident life of the party person. It can mean, you go to a comic book club, one of the people on the email list for the comic book club is funny and cool, and you send them an email and you're like, I really like that stuff you said about that book. Do you want to hang out sometime? Like, you can do it in your own way. You can do it in a small way. A lot of times we end up kind of stitching together our found families and communities through the handful of other freaks at the function. So, go to that organizing meeting, go to that church service, whatever your thing is that you're passionate about. It's okay if you don't like most of the people there and most of them don't like you. You can still kind of just move through it, see what's useful for you about the space, get from it what you can. And if you see some people there who are standing off to the corner awkwardly, or they're the hater in the room, or they're the funny weirdo in the room, those might be your people. And you can cultivate those relationships. A lot of us think of ourselves as having no social power. And we do. We do have social power. We have the ability to tell someone, I think you're cool. I really liked that thing that you stood up and said that was unpopular. I thought that was really brave. I admire you. You look awkward and lonely at this party. I'm awkward and lonely at this party too. Let's go find the cat together. You can do that stuff. And even if you feel really isolated and you feel like, you're only online or on social media, something like that, you, even just by virtue of that, you have social skills that some people don't have. No matter how awkward you might feel, you have social skills by virtue of any relationships you've had or situations you've had to navigate. And there are other people out there just like you who feel just as anxious and afraid, and they would love to hear from you. And you'll feel so much better when you're around them. I just had a birthday party full of the freaks, full of the awkward people who my partner said seems like people who you wouldn't expect at a party. And it was a whole party of the people who would not normally want to go to parties.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, you reminded me of one of my favorite shirts. There's this artist I found on Instagram. I'll put him in the show notes. His name is Justin something, but sells a bunch of amazing shirts and stickers on Etsy. And this one is like two or three cats like with top hats on, and it says at the function being weird and off-putting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to tell you.
And that's us.
Always.
Love it.
You
That's always who I love at the party.
Devon, what would you want to leave people with as a takeaway today? And if you don't mind humoring us, kicking it off with, but for real, and then your takeaway.
But for real, being annoying and people not liking you is part of the work. It's part of the progress. The goal is not to maximize your likability. It's to occupy reality in the shape that you are shaped and move through the world. And if people are disliking you sometimes, or they're noticing you, or you're getting a little bit of attention that feels bad, that means you're really making a lot of progress and not hiding yourself. So celebrate that, get used to that as much as you can. Sometimes doing the right thing for you inherently means your mom isn't going to like it. You're going to get some little snarky comment from the coworker who's always taking on too much, and they're mad that you're not taking on too much anymore. That is okay. And you are setting other people free when you do that. So try to move through that initial discomfort of, oh my God, I'm getting stares. I'm not getting the approval that I used to. I'm not invisible. And know that you are getting so much stronger, and there are people noticing you doing that, and that's getting them stronger too, and that's setting them free too. So lean into it. Be annoying. Do the thing. It's okay.
I love it. And occupy the world in the shape that you are shaped, like internally, externally. I'm like,
Wow.
Yes. Yes.
Hell yeah.
Amazing.
And now, our musical segment. Now that's what I call okay, where Emerson and I each share a song with each other each week as representatives of our respective generations. We tell you a little bit about the song or artist, and then we press pause, we share the song with each other, and then we come back for our live reactions. And we're capturing it all on a Spotify playlist linked in the show notes for you.
So, Devon, you sent us Cause Equals Time by Broken Social Scene. To give us a little bit of like the who and what, and then we'll do a live watch and listen together.
Oh, amazing. So Broken Social Scene, if you saw I Saw the TV Glow, you might have heard a song by Broken Social Scene. The kind of main song played in there, Anthems for a 17-Year-Old Girl, is a Broken Social Scene song. That movie's set in the early 2000s, so we are firmly in millennial indie core kind of music, and that's what it is. Cause Equals Time is a song that I've been listening to a lot lately. I've been taking singing lessons, and it's like right in my range. So yeah, so it's this kind of like moody little indie rock song with lyrics that seem like they're profound, but maybe don't mean anything. And I've just been really returning to it lately and kind of getting in touch with my angsty teenage self.
Amazing. And I remember them, but they were not like I was like a death cab girl. But I remember liking their stuff.
I love it.
I love their vibe. What is your
Yes.
sense, given that we've not done a lyrical deep dive? What's your meaning of the paper bags and the masks?
I don't know, like I was really struck that they're wearing a lot of camo, and I'm thinking like, early 2000s, like there was a lot of like anti-Iraq war in Afghanistan, kind of like, I'm thinking even like Gorillaz had a lot of music videos where like characters were like in these like camos and stuff. So I think it is kind of like this like anonymous Americana anti-war kind of thing going on, probably. I also saw the gas mask, and I just recently got a gas mask for like fun, kinky reasons. And I was like, oh, maybe this was an early route in thinking those things were cool.
Love it.
And now for our last segment of the show, welcome to Fire Dumpster Phoenix. It is rough out there, y'all, and we need all the hope we can get. It's time to go dumpster diving for some positive news and rise from the leftover Happy Meal ashes together.
Okay, so I pulled this from, no one's surprised, the Good News Network. Lol, I should pay them at this point. But I'm just locked in. So this company, Matter Neuroscience, in an effort to connect what they believe are the two loneliest age groups, which are Zoomers and Boomers, they placed these payphones in Boston and Reno outside of one's in a coffee shop, and then one connects to the Volunteers of America Affordable Senior Housing Community. So they're just enjoying watching these folks like pick up these payphones. So if you want to pick it up in Boston, it'll call, or vice versa. So these boomers and zoomers are just like yapping on these payphones, which is just, again, kind of hilarious, where I'm like, those moments, Devon, I often say to Valerie, it's so funny to me when I pull these kinds of stories, because I'm like, well, no, duh. Like, this is just like what we should be doing. But the world is so like weird and lonely and tragic a lot of the time. So my heart is warmed by these like kids like, calling the elderly and just being like, so what are you doing today? Or that in the article, one of the boomers from the senior housing was like, yeah, I flipped it on its script. And instead of pretending that I'm like the wise one, like I'd asked this kid, like, what they're doing with their life, or if they have advice for me. I just thought it was really cute. So I thought it was really cool.
I love it. Okay, mine comes from, shout out to my mom, Harriet, who sent me this.
Queen.
Do you want to include this?
Yeah.
So economist Paul Krugman had an article on his Substack recently called In Batteries We Trust. Ooh. So, energy crisis, which of course is only getting worse by the day, but regardless of, as he says, Trump's chest thumping, America, thank God, is not the entire world. We actually only account for about 15% of global energy consumption. And the rest of the world, especially China and Europe, is doing some pretty cool things.
Yes.
Continuing to do great work with renewable energy. And, we know solar and wind get a lot of attention, but batteries apparently are having a moment, because they've gotten really good in terms of their quality and what they can do. Mm-hmm. And the price is just getting lower. So it's really encouraging. He said, cheap battery storage of electricity greatly mitigates the problem of intermittency, because obviously the sun is not always shining, the wind is not always blowing. So for the renewable revolution, this is very encouraging for kind of round the clock power. And he ends the article saying, although we are now in the midst of a severe energy crisis that could easily go on for many months, this too shall pass. A better, cheaper, cleaner energy future is on the way, and not even Trump can stop it.
Oh, period. That just brought me back to life. Thank God.
Yeah. Okay.
Amazing. All right.
So that was our rapid fire.
Yes, we'll hit a little rapid fire, a little pew, 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 because, we've got to put folks on the spot just a little bit of distress tolerance,
Yes, famously being on the spot, something autistic people famously thrive.
Famously, something that I also hate.
Yes.
So, a bit of masochism. Okay, Devon, if you could be any animal, what would you choose?
Oh, well, you're talking to a furry, so this is very hard. I wanted to be a bat as a kid, so bats are up there. My fursona is a deer. I love any kind of small rodent. I'd be a squirrel. I'd be a jackalope. I hope I get many turns around the wheel of death and rebirth so I can
Oh,
amazing.
God. Bats?
Yeah.
I just have to have a sidebar here. I'm ruining the rapid fire. Bats are so fucking cool.
They are.
I was in the Austin airport yesterday. I used to live there, and bats are a big thing in Austin. So they
Yes.
have this great display near security all about bats.
Oh my God.
And I was like, did you know that most bats weigh like between a fourth to a third of an ounce?
It was so cute.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes,
Okay.
but the back.
Devin, if you could only drink one beverage for the rest of your life, and maybe let's say it doesn't have water, you would get to have water.
Yeah,
too.
you can have water.
What would it be?
Yeah. I'm gonna say a cortado, like a little creamy, a little bitter, tiny but cute. I don't know. I love her.
I love that. Okay. What piece of media have you consumed just an insane amount of times?
Mad Men. I will watch Mad Men through anytime, anywhere. I have so many theories. If you're hearing this, talk to me about Mad Men. I'm obsessed. Still. to this day.
Interesting.
I have literally never seen it, so now I'm feeling very motivated.
I'm
to.
feeling compelled.
Okay. And then favorite texture fidget toy.
Oh, I just got. Oh my God, this thing.
Leaning in.
Us immediately leaning in.
My friend Faith just got this for me as a birthday present. So I'm a big skin picker. I love popping people.
Yeah.
Same. Us too.
And they gave me this stim toy, so it's kind of like a little bit of like silicone kind of wax material. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
And so it's got little beads in it, and you can just kind of dig the bead out, and it feels like you're popping a pimple or you're digging out a zit. So then this little pearl comes out, and then you can microwave it in here and reuse it an infinite number of times.
It goes back.
I did not know that part. That's amazing.
Oh, I'm obsessed.
So good. Highly recommend.
Okay.
Okay, I'm obsessed. Okay. Last one to close us out. What is your favorite time of day?
Oh, I'm becoming a morning person, which is so annoying.
Gag.
Like, I am
no,
loving
seriously.
a cheeky little 7 a.m. walk in the
Wow.
park, listening to my tunes. It's fixing me. I don't know.
I love it.
Valerie is pro morning.
I do.
She's the morning girl. I'm trying to get there, but wowie.
Well, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much, Devin. And tell the people, we'll have it in the show notes, but tell the people where they can find you.
Yes.
You can get my books anywhere you get books. And then I write for free about neurodivergence, queer stuff, whatever. I have a Pluribus article coming out soon, whatever old thing at drdevonprice.substack.com.
Amazing.
Perfect. Devin, thank you so much. Happy birthday. Have an amazing day.
Yeah, this was so fun.
All right. Thanks so much.
This has been another episode of But For Real, hosted by Valerie Martin and Emerson Ryder, and edited by Volt Productions.
But For Real is produced by the Gaia Center for Embodied Healing. The Gaia Center offers individual, couples, and group therapy for clients across Tennessee and in person in our Nashville office, as well as coaching and other programs for clients worldwide. For show notes or to learn more about our work, visit GaiaCenter.co or find us on Instagram at The Gaia Center and at But For Real Pod.
But For Real is intended for education and entertainment and is not a substitute for mental health treatment.
Also, since we host this podcast primarily as humans rather than clinicians, we are not shy about sharing our opinions here on everything from snacks and movies to politicians and social issues.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode.
See you next time, bestie!